It'll be very interesting to see how the audience responds to this production. It's written by the same people, Cantor and Ebb, that wrote Cabaret and Chicago. What happens in this show, what ostensibly seems to be a political kind of treatise, actually turns out to be a love story. And it's a kind of a forbidden love story, and that makes it very, very special.
First of all, the plot is so different. You know, classic musical, there's lots of dancing, singing, sometimes more presentational. This story's a lot more dark. I mean, there's still joyous moments, and, you know, he goes into his fantasies every once in a while, but it's very different to, as an actor, to snap from one moment being in a torture scene and the next to be imagining these movie fantasies that Melina has.
It's a very fun role to play Valentine in Kiss of the Spider-Woman. Very different role from what I've played before. Very, I wouldn't say villain-like, but not a loving character by any means. Not a lover that you would expect in a normal musical.
My character's very, a little more flamboyant, a little more colorful, and my cellmate is a lot more harsh. He's been through a lot, so it's really interesting playing against that because playing with trying to bring the colorfulness to someone that's really harsh, but at the same time, the person that's colorful has to take that harshness. So it's interesting through the show as they kind of give and take a little bit with their qualities.
It's weird to kiss somebody and have them die. Usually on stage, you know, kisses are so romantic and you're doing it with someone you love, and for this it's evil and it's sultry at the same time.
It's a very different dynamic, working with a love interest that's my mom and not, you know, another woman or another man. It's a different type of love.
That is very difficult to play my love interest, especially because I don't see her.
This particular show is very exciting because I have a faculty lighting designer, I have a graduate sound designer, I have a graduate student, Noah Files, who's doing the scene design, and he's writing a book about it, and he's already won an award from the Kennedy Center American College Theater Festival for the design of the Spider-Woman, even though it hadn't opened yet. I have an undergrad costume designer, Allie Bowman, who's doing a wonderful job amongst all the old creatures that are in that part of that design team. But that design work that happens right at the very beginning is absolutely critical to the benefit of the entire show and to the concept of the entire show. I have the initial idea, and then it's changed and challenged and perverted and made better by the production team.
In working through the concept for Kiss of the Spider-Woman, it started from an early process of creating a very literal space, a very literal prison cell. And as the process went on of the concept, and as we started working together as a design team, it became a matter of, well, what do we really need to create this prison, and what can we use for more than one thing? And going from a very literal prison cell to where they're very harsh and confined and alone, and into this metaphysical world of Aurora's movies. And so it became a matter of making pieces flexible so that we could just travel instantly from one world to the next, and that concept of what is reality and what is escape, and how can they go in between the two so easily. And so being able to fully utilize that space in ways that it hasn't necessarily been used before, and just using the entirety of it, not necessarily differently, but using the entire space, was very important. And the evolution of the spiderweb and making it work into the design was something that was important to both myself and the director early on, as both a figurative thing in the Spider-Woman and how she works, and very literal part of the design, as in having that presence of death in this really harsh space. We talked about ways of not just having it present, but having it usable, having it something people can interact with. And so in its present state, it's made completely out of steel and can be climbed up, so you can climb all the way from the floor up to as high as our lighting grid, which is something like 25 feet up. And so having it not just present, but having it something that people can interact with and having it be a real part of the show has been exciting. Very early on we decided that it was a metal show and not a wood show. It's that harshness, usually you think of wooden furniture and it creates a sense of warmth, of home, and we just really wanted to sort of divorce ourselves from that and create this harsh space. The color choices on the set are very, lots of dingy grays and blacks, primarily to sort of create a non-color space and let the lighting designer really kind of accent the differences between the spaces, and really using a lot of texture to help emphasize that grittiness and that harshness of the space.
Part of my design with the prison is showing Valentine's his change from being very new to prison and getting slowly more and more degraded through it. So he starts off with a fairly all-together costume with a little bit of distressing, and then it slowly gets darker and dingier and more ripped as the show goes on. The contrast between the prison and the movies is very interesting because you go from this very dingy and dark and dirty, cool colors in the prison, and then we transfer into this magical world of bright reds and oranges and yellows and sparkles and fur and wonderful big costume when we get into the movies and the fantasy world. It's really interesting designing like 6 costumes for one character in the show, Aurora. You try and find ways to make every costume a little different, and you have to do that through silhouette and color. And
my favorite costume by far has to be my orange costume for the song Let's Make Love. It's got sequins all over, and it's got a huge tail that's really fun to play with, and it really just makes me want to do the dance and move around.
My favorite costume that Aurora wears is the black spiderweb dress that she wears as the Spider-Woman, and I think it just accents her body and her figure and then the character very well.
Stylistically, the show is very challenging. It's challenging for the actors, it's challenging for the design team, and that just makes it all the more fun.